Welcome back to Casino Guitars. We've got a fun video today. We're going to try something a little different. We're going to talk about one of our favorite amps, the Fender Princeton Reverb, and just the Princeton in general. Now, maybe you're looking for your first tube amp. Maybe you've played all the Fender stuff and you've played some Princetons and you love Princetons and you just settled on that, or maybe you just know that everyone needs sort of a small tube amp with a 10-inch speaker. No matter what's brought you to the Princeton, there are some options. So obviously there's vintage options that are on the table that you can find out there. But we're going to talk about sort of the 5 Princetons you could pretty much walk into a Fender dealer and buy today. We're going to go through the differences and just talk about, hey, which one may be right for you. Spoiler, they're all awesome. So I don't think there's a wrong choice. I just think there's different choices. Starting out, we got the basic 65 reissue. This is sort of the, a good place to start. Killer amp, 12 watts of tonal bliss. There's a reason people love Princetons. They're simple. They just sound good. They've got great reverb. They've got tremolo that sounds fantastic. Misnomered as vibrato by old Leo, but trim nonetheless. And this amp is killer. Like I said, it's 12 watts. It's not insanely loud, but you'd be surprised what you can do with it. In fact, we sort of help host a blues jam at Casino Guitars at the Neon Rooster, which is a venue you've heard us talk about. And we often, unmiked in a room of about 100 people, use just a Princeton. Just turn it up. And that's it. That's the tone for the blues jam, and it's pretty fantastic. And it's fun to see guitar players kind of light up when they realize what it's like to run a tube amp. Not on 2 with pedals, but just to turn it up and see what happens. So the Princeton's great for that. Obviously, it does sound pretty good at low volumes. It can be really, really nice clean. As you get louder, it starts to break up. But this is your basic one, the 65 reissue. Comes with a 2-button foot switch to turn the reverb and the tremolo on and off. And man, it just sounds great. It was a great entry place to get into that sort of vintagey vibe, vintage styled kind of world of tube amps. The 65 Princeton. All right, we talked about the 65 reissue Princeton. It's been around for a long time. This one is a newer comer. It's been around a while now too, but I remember when these came out, the whole line of the 68 Custom, sort of the drip edge kind of Silverface look on some of the Fender reissue amps. This one's a little different. I mentioned the blues jam that we have at Neon Rooster. This is actually the one that sits there sometimes. So killer amp, still 110. Still 12 watts, but a few differences. I think one of the big differences is the speaker. So you got a Jensen in the 65 reissue, got a Celestion in this, which gives you a little more sort of like a rock and roll kind of thing. A little less of that sort of chimey Fender thing and a little more, earlier breakup. To me, the 68 is a hair warmer, and it definitely gets dirtier quicker. So if you're looking, maybe a little less classic Princeton, maybe a little more on the rock side. Maybe you want to break up a little quicker without the use of pedals, or even with a boost or something. This might be the one It might be my favorite in some ways. I just think it's a really fat sounding, great little example of what a Fender Princeton can be. Still got the trim, still got the reverb, and they all sound pretty darn fantastic. So this is the 68 Custom Princeton. All right, so we've looked at the 65 reissue Princeton. We've looked at the 68 Custom Princeton. Talk a little bit about the differences in those. You know, both of those sort of hit these sort of like, you know, the black panel and then the drip edge, like years of Fender. In some ways authentic to what was going on then, in some ways not. But there was a little period there from like 61 to 63 where they made these brown amps, brown face, brown panel, whatever you want to call them. You'll notice it does not say Princeton Reverb like the 68 Custom and the 65 do. This was just a Princeton. There's no reverb, but there is a magical, sort of like a harmonic trim that people love. This features that. It's got a single button foot switch. It's double on the other two because you can turn off the reverb and the trim. On this one, it's just for the trim. This one might be worth it, you know, price of admission just to get that sound because it's awesome. And you're probably thinking, but Jonathan, pedals do that. Man, the pedals do it really well, but there's something like hearing it from the amp when it's built into the circuit. Some kind of magical about this one. This one has a different speaker as well. It's got an Eminence 12-inch speaker. And I think that changes the tone a little bit. Something about a 10-inch speaker does something a little different. So this one is a 12. A lot of people historically have updated Princeton's to 12-inch speakers. So you kind of get a little bit of that in this particular model. Obviously, this one is a signature model, so it's sort of based off an example that Chris Stapleton actually has. But a killer amp nonetheless, still 12 watts, still going to break up, you know, just going up the volume on the amp. But if you want something a little different, if maybe reverb's not quite as important to you and you dig that harmonic tremolo, this might be the way to go. Getting a little more expensive. The other ones are just over $1,000. Like in that world, this one is in that sort of $2,300 range. So definitely bumping up the price a bit, but a fantastic sounding amp. All right, if you thought to yourself, man, 2,300 bucks, that's chump change for an amp, this might be the one for you. This one is the Handwired 64 reissue Princeton from Fender. That's a big selling point for a lot of folks, the fact that it's hand-wired. Does that change the sound? Maybe. Maybe not. There does seem to be some sort of magic, you know what I mean? And I won't pretend to tell you that it's a million times better than the 65, but there is something great about this. I do love the fact that things that are hand-wired, you can work on them, you can fix them, and these amps will be around for a long time. They have solid pine cabinets on these, so a little added resonance. There's a 10-inch Jensen Alnico P10R speaker. Pretty awesome, very much that sparkling kind of clean tone, and it does the breakup stuff really well. But these are, this is probably as close as you can get without going vintage to that sort of I believe it's the AA764 circuit is the technical name. Still got the reverb, still got tremolo. Man, this is a good sounding amp. Anytime a guitar comes in the shop, this is probably the first amp that everyone plugs into, just because it sounds good with sort of everything. It sounds great at like a volume that is reasonable. Whether you were in the studio, whether you're gigging, or whether you're playing at home, this could be a fantastic amp. So if you got a little more cash to spend and you want a killer Princeton without going the vintage route, man, this is probably the way to go. So this one is the 64 Handwired Princeton Reverb from Fender. And last but not least, this one looks a lot like the others, but it is actually a lot different, at least in how it makes the sounds it makes. It was a lot easier to put up on the table because this is the Tone Master Princeton Reverb from Fender. Yeah, no tubes here. This thing is all digital. It sounds great though. It's got the ability to go all the way from is it 0.3 or 3? 0.3 watts all the way up to the full 12 watts like you get in normal Princeton. We've played these things pretty good, just out of curiosity. They take pedals well, a lot like a regular Princeton. But like I said, you got the built-in attenuation. You've got a really lightweight speaker in there. So the whole thing, I don't remember exactly what it weighs, but it's not a lot. It's a lot lighter. Not a huge consideration with a Princeton like it would be with like the Super Reverb version or the Twin Reverb version, but it's there. You got things like cabinet sims if you want to do line out for recording or use the headphone jack. Just a lot of cool features and a way to get sort of a tube amp sound or an amp you could gig with and not have to worry about tubes going out or being able to play at home or straight into your recording software via like an interface or something. Just all sorts of cool things you can do with this one. A little less on the price tag, pretty substantially less actually as well. So if maybe you love the idea of a Princeton, maybe you love the sound of a Princeton, you don't want to quite go the tube route, the Tone Master, not a bad thing at all, especially if you don't want to do the modular thing where you need something to plug into, you want to be able to play sort of like a real amp. You want that experience of plugging into an actual physical amp and hearing sound come out of a speaker at you. this is a pretty darn good choice. So, you know, definitely cool, definitely a viable option. But yeah, check out the Tone Master series. The whole series is pretty great. There's our 5 Princetons that you can walk in to most guitar shops and buy today. Hopefully this sheds some light on the differences. Maybe in the demos you heard something you loved or hated or whatever maybe pushed you in the direction of a certain one. Hopefully that was true. Let us know in the comments which one is your favorite. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss videos like this in the future. Also, let us know if you like this format. If you want to see more videos like this from us, they're fun to do, and our new studio kind of affords us that option. So it'd be great to hear whether or not you guys want to hear more of this stuff. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.